We are live. So, welcome everybody to another episode of GloJoy's Everything Construction Corner. We're here with Jonathan Core. How are you today, Jonathan?
I'm doing really well, Gloria. It was a super productive, solid week for me, and I'm excited to close it out strong with our conversation today.
Absolutely. It's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in New York. Where are you located today?
I'm currently located in a city east of Seattle, Washington, called Bellevue, Washington.
All right. So, what time is it over there? It's like 12.
It's lunchtime. It's 12,
All right,
right
perfect.
on the
So,
dot.
when I was planning the GloJoy's Everything Construction Corner, I was thinking, what is a good time for construction people to log on? And there's
Mhm.
like the 9:30 in the morning break,
Yep.
9:30 right in the West Coast and the, Central and East Coast. And then there's lunchtime. And then there's like after work. And, on a Friday, I'm thinking, well, 3 o'clock is okay. Cause like I would hope that after a long week, most people aren't working too hard at 3 o'clock on a Friday,
Yeah, exactly.
And also just thinking of the time differences, right? And trying to figure out, okay, West Coast, what's a good time that works for the West Coast that also works for the East Coast? Because we've got guests from all over North America. So you and I have met virtually on LinkedIn. I have never met you in person. And here you are. But we have been really good LinkedIn friends and social media friends. So, online buddies, if you will, for a while. I've been supporting your content for some time. For the folks who are not on LinkedIn, because we have a lot of folks who watch who are not on LinkedIn, can you let them know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Jonathan, and I run a social media marketing agency called Customer Growth, and we work with commercial contractors, basically helping them build their brand online through the means of social media content.
Okay. And Jesus, of course, slave driver over there in Texas saying it's always time to work. We know, where are you at right now, buddy? 'Cause he's over here watching the show, right? So thank you for tuning in. Thank you to everybody who's tuning in from LinkedIn, YouTube, and whatever platforms you're streaming from. And of course, if you're catching the replay, make sure that you do hashtag replay. Since we have Jonathan here, also, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share all of that stuff that the social media people tell us to do. Because apparently, people have to be reminded to like, follow, comment, and subscribe. So let's jump right into it. Let's talk a little bit about social media. And also, we'll dive a little bit deep into construction and I'll ask you the question that I asked to absolutely everybody, which is why construction?
So why construction? So in a nutshell, I guess my orange origin story into construction is I grew up in a construction family. So I'm Hispanic.
Okay.
I'm half Mexican, half Guatemalan. And so I grew up with my family, both immediate as well as extended, worked in the trades. And so growing up, I watched my dad be a trades worker, both carpenter and
Mhm.
then eventually painter. Eventually launched his own business at some point during maybe middle school for me. And fast
Okay.
forward into high school, I ended up working the summers to be able to pay for school clothes, because when I asked my dad saying, okay, like, high school, especially too, you think of the social kind of environment and what that means. I'm like, okay, I need my clothing to look great. And I'm like, hey, like, so when are we gonna go shop? He's like, yeah, we don't have any money for you for
Sorry,
clothes. And he's like, yeah,
mijo, like,
yeah,
no.
you,
Like, what do
you have
you
to go
mean?
work for it. Yeah, exactly. So we had to go work for it. Ended up working with him for the summers, and yeah, and so eventually my career trajectory, if you look at it on LinkedIn, was supposed to be I was supposed to be a musician be a musician for the rest of my life, but
Yep.
it definitely took a turn once I got married and realized I had to make more money,
Yep.
because as a musician, unless you're the top 1%, it's definitely a struggle out there, and so eventually I pivoted from music, full-time musician, into construction. And I actually had a construction mentor. Well, it was a mentor, but he was in construction. He owned his own commercial painting company, and he was mentoring me through this process. While I was making the switch, I actually went to become a painter again, as I did in high school.
Mhm.
to be able to just try to get my foot in the door, basically figure out what I want to do next after
Right.
researching so many different so many different facets of business. You have marketing, sales, finance, project management, IT. You have, so many different aspects. And for me, I realized marketing was a good fit for me because I'm definitely business minded, but I'm also creative, considering the fact, with like
Music and all
music and
that
things like
stuff.
that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so eventually, I towards the end of a project I was doing for this small painting company. It wasn't this commercial guy that it was just a small residential painting company. Basically what happened is I finished a job, and then they knew that I wanted to go into marketing. And so they said, "Hey, Jonathan, there's a sales/marketing role that we're opening up, and curious to see,
Mhm.
knowing that you're wanting to go in that direction, would you like to do that?" And I was like, "Oh, awesome." And so I ended up texting the mentor that I had right away. Um, and basically saying, "Hey, just so you know, the company that I'm at, just offered me this role. I know that this is the direction I'm wanting to go. What are your thoughts?" And he responded within a matter of a few minutes saying, "Hey, Jonathan, I think that's a great idea. I
Yep.
just think you should come and do it for us instead." And so, in a sense, he's pitching me to, in a sense, recruiting me to come and work for his company. And that is, in a sense, I was there for a few years, and then eventually have pivoted out to be able to start my own
Wait, which
agency now, helping
company
multiple
which
contractors.
company did you end up going with? The one your mentors, right?
Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
okay,
Because
okay.
yeah, no, for sure. Like I was definitely super it's a bigger company. It was definitely
Yeah.
way bigger, probably 10, 15 times bigger than them. So that
Mhm.
definitely offered more opportunity from that standpoint. But the biggest thing though that stuck out to me is this guy was mentoring me, when the reality is, like, he probably could have allocated his time in much more productive ways than to just help this, broke musician who's trying to
Mhm.
transition into the business world. But instead, he took a gamble on me, and it ended up paying off. So that's kind of the story, and why construction,
Yeah.
and why I've stayed.
So I learned so much about you just now. Like, first of all, learned that you spoke Spanish like 3 minutes before we got on, which is awesome. I also got to learn that you grew up very similar to me. My dad was like, "Girl, you ain't getting no car." We moved to Texas. I remember when I was 16, and I'd lived in the
Mm,
Caribbean my whole life. And where we lived, the driving age was 18. So none of my friends had a
mm,
car. But then when
yeah.
we moved to America, to the mainland, as we call it, uh, everybody my age had a car. And we, of course, moved to an affluent neighborhood because my
Mm,
father wanted us to go to public school and he wanted us to be within a certain school district and, things that parents do. Right. And so, everybody had a car. And I was like, Dad, I need to have a car because I have to fit in, much like my
mhm,
J's when I was in middle
yeah.
school and all that stuff. And very similar.
Hey.
Yeah. Very similar to you. He was like, "Nah, girl, like, you can get no car here." In fact, he would let us borrow his car. We'd have to bring it back full, kind of like a car rental, which,
No scratches.
no scratches, you know. I eventually ended up buying my own car before I even graduated high school, and it was doing summer jobs and, everything like else, like saving birthday
Yeah.
money and whatever else. So, very cool. I think that that's something that, um, I see a lot from our generation and I see
Mhm.
has been a little bit lost, which
Yeah.
is why perhaps, upper level management complains about some of the incoming folks and other
Mhm.
things,
Well, and I was gonna
Mhm.
jump in and say, like, really quick, I'm glad I didn't grow up with an allowance. I had friends who had allowances, like, "Hey, here's your money, here's your money." I'm like, I like, "Hey, if you wanted something, you had to go work for it." And for me, maybe
Yeah.
back then, I would pout and I'd be like, "No, I don't want it. Like, just give me the thing I want." But now, hindsight, I'm like, I'm glad that that was a lesson I was taught at a young age, because now I
Yeah.
know, hey, if Jonathan wants this, he's got to do this in order to get that. And I'm like, okay, perfect. There's a price to be paid for this thing. It's not like my parents or school or even the government will hand me it. I'm like, no, I have to work for what I got. And I'm glad I learned that lesson, because I definitely see other people struggling with that now as
Right.
they're in their adult age.
Yeah, and I think, parents did it in, they didn't want their kids to struggle the way that they did, so they
Yeah.
did it with good intentions. I don't think anybody does any of these things with ill intentions, right? I think they just want what's best for their kids. And so,
Hmm.
I appreciate that, but what leads to that then is this mentor of yours, right? He
Hmm.
saw in you this hardworking spirit and this will and want and desire. And I feel like when people ask me to be a mentor, which I laugh because I feel like I'm not in a position to be one just yet. But I see how motivated are they? How like, are they hardworking? Are they the ones following up with me? Are they the ones seeking out other opportunities? Right. So shout out to your mentor. Don't know his name. But shout out to him and all the mentors really in the construction industry. So you worked with him for a couple of years and then you started your own company. What year was this around? Because social media has, been it's been popping for some time,
Yeah.
and it's also done some of this, especially with the
Yep.
platforms. And you look old enough to have a MySpace, I think, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I did. I did. I
Yeah.
had I had all the graphics, I had the playlists, I had every like honestly, if I look back, I'm sure I'll probably cringe, but back then I thought I had the best, most optimized page in the world. It took forever to load because I had so many stuff on it, but it was
We
awesome.
all know how to code just a little bit though, because of things like MySpace and
Yep.
chat rooms. Remember, we used to be able to
Yep.
customize chat rooms if you're old
Yep.
enough to know that. So yeah, Gen X and Gen and the millennials really had it fun.
Yep.
Now everybody's got these social media platforms with like apps and editors and all these things. My social media team always asks me how I know how to do all these edits, and I'm like, yo, I used to be a fitness coach. We had to edit music and
Mm.
videos and like, so I
Mm.
come from a creative background too. I've danced my whole life and I throw a little dance into some other platforms, not LinkedIn, guys. Sorry. I'm not going to dance on LinkedIn, but I'll dance on other platforms and have a little fun with it. And yeah, I think creatives just inherently are going to be a little bit better at this marketing and social media stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and I'll also agree with you. I'm not. You're never gonna see me dance. I'm actually not a dancer. My wife is a dancer. She loves to dance. I'm always
Yep.
the one she has to somehow motivate or persuade to come on the dance floor. But I definitely think that it's interesting that you came from a fitness background because obviously you obviously bring a unique perspective to construction when it comes from a content creation standpoint because I feel like there are a lot of fitness content creators out there. Some are
Mhm.
better than others, but honestly, I feel like especially too when it comes from me from a content creation standpoint, I get a lot of inspiration from other industries that aren't construction, so I
Yep.
can bring that into construction as a means to maybe if people are like, "Wow, this is innovative," or "This is a great thought." It's like, no, actually, I just stole this from that other industry, or somebody else did this already. I'm just reinventing it for construction, but I'm
Right.
just curious, yeah, like have you seen that kind of like the advantage that you've had from being, fitness influencer and now, being in construction from a content creation standpoint?
1000%. In fact, we've gone through a couple of social media admins for our various social media pages. And, my CMO, shout out to Megan and, our strategist for all of our marketing. And she's a fractional CMO, probably very similar to you and some of the businesses that you work with. Megan is a celebrity fitness trainer and
Mm.
she mostly works with fitness brands. And she didn't have a single construction company when she started working with us, but her and I used to teach group fitness together. So
Mm.
she started her business. I saw what she was doing for other companies, and I was like, she owns a house. She's been through at least one or two construction projects. She'll figure it out. Like, that's like the least, you know what I mean? What I cared about was her engagement, her creativity,
Mhm.
and just the out of the box thinking that I wasn't getting from people, who were, I guess, copycatting what other construction companies were doing. And it just didn't fit us. Like it had no
Mm.
GloJoy personality. Like it was
Yeah.
just another meme or another this or another, you know what I mean? And there's so much strategy behind the branding and the
Mhm.
storytelling and everything else. And so, yes, coming from fitness, I think that I mean, fitness, dance, theater, all of that stuff. I think I do have a competitive advantage over others.
Mhm,
But I will say, just like I said right before this show started, I have no time for it. I'm running a business
mhm.
out here. I could make funny reels all day, every day, and that could be like a full time job. But I really have like no time for it.
Yep.
So the premise of this whole show was also to create content that then the team can chop up and turn into medium or short form video or blogs or whatever, right? For inspiration, really, and also to just put the brand out there. And I don't know if we're doing it right or not, but we're getting leads from it, and I think that that's like
Awesome.
all everybody wants, right?
Yeah, well, no, for sure, and I'm glad you say that. Like you're getting leads and getting results in a meaningful way because I can't remember. I was listening to a podcast recently, and someone was mentioning how there's like this big LinkedIn influencer who had tons of engagement, tons of followers, all these sort of things. Just like if you look at them from an external standpoint, they're like they should have tons of business and opportunities coming in, but they found out that they were looking for like a job, and like they were actually like that the LinkedIn actual like avenue that they were building wasn't actually providing enough income for them to actually sustain what they were trying to do, which no knock on that. It is tough, but the reality though is sometimes we do get bogged down with how many likes. Oh man, I just got 5 likes or blah, or I got 10 likes on this post. The reality of the matter is if you get 5 likes but you get one client that ends up becoming a very big client or project,
Yeah.
I take that any day. I'll take that any
All
day.
day, every day, all day, every day. And, we've got a LinkedIn user here that says, let's go. So thank you for that. And then we have,
Let's go.
Mr. Matt Yeti, construction Yeti himself that says, Megan is awesome. She does a great job. And, she does a great job. She understands us in our business. She's got a couple construction clients now. So I told her that's a niche she can add to her repertoire now, like we do construction, we do fitness,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And, um, as we grow, you know what I mean? I see a lot of collaboration between just other influencers here in the construction
Mhm.
industry, Matt, yourself, and others. The LinkedIn community is super tight. We've got a pretty tight community over on the gram. I hear TikTok is disappearing, and whatever. And so, but that's also like always changing, right? Like there could
Yeah.
be another platform that launches tomorrow and that we all have to learn. And that's
Clubhouse.
I remember Clubhouse. That's actually how this show started.
Oh, there you go.
So this show is an old Clubhouse club.
Mm.
So Everything Construction was the largest construction club on Clubhouse. We have 4,500 members and like grew super
Wow.
fast. Yeah, it grew super fast. And then Clubhouse like kind of got spammy and whatever.
Mhm.
And we started working with another club called the Real Estate Talk Club. We helped them grow
Mm.
that to like 100,000+ members.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Had live events and like all sorts of stuff. And then yeah. And I was like, what do I do? I had most of the people's emails and a lot of them were connected with me on LinkedIn. I was like, what do I do with this? And so I was like, oh, we just turn everything construction into this LinkedIn live thing.
Yep.
And we have a LinkedIn group, which is starting to gain traction. We're almost at 100 members, and LinkedIn groups, they take a while, but
Yeah.
yeah, other people are posting on it, and yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, this is a Clubhouse happened, and so we pivoted.
Hmm. So I know that this is your show, but I do want to ask you this.
I know, like we're like going back and forth, but that's okay. That always happens with you marketing people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but it's really interesting to see. I would say you've done a great job in those illustrations from Clubhouse, and then now how it's evolved and different things of bringing people together, like of
Okay.
building community and all that sort of stuff. I'm curious, where did that come from? Where did that start? Because I would say that's not a natural bent for most people. Where did that come from for you?
Oh, I'm an expat. And so for people who don't know what that is I grew up off the mainland. We are American, dad is from New York, mom's from Puerto Rico. I was born in Puerto Rico, brother, sister, US Virgin Islands, like that's where we live. We're American, but we worked for an American company in other countries. And so growing up as an expat, either you move a lot or your friends move
Mm,
a lot. And so you have to know how to make friends quickly. You have
yeah.
to know also how to just brush your shoulders off if somebody don't like you. And they're
Yeah.
probably going to move in 6 months anyway, so like pff, who cares? You know, whatever. And we don't have to talk to Dave over there cuz you know, probably gonna move in 6 months. His dad doesn't have a good job anyway. Like,
Mhm.
um, and what's funny is, he was probably the pipe fitter and probably making way more than our dads. But again, that
Mhm.
was like mentality because we would see what his dad
Mm,
was dressed like compared to other people's dads. We
yeah.
all went to the same private school. And so I throw
Mm.
shade and joke, but I mean, we had no idea what anybody's parents did growing up. We just knew that everybody worked
Mm.
for the oil and gas plant, or they worked for um a hotel, right? So I grew up in Aruba, and people who watch
Oh.
this show know that, or any other podcast know I mostly grew up in Aruba. And so those were the two industries, hotel or oil and gas. And they could be blue collar, they could be white collar, but
Mhm.
most people there were expats. They were people
Mm.
from other countries. So you come from a small business in construction. I'm gonna transition the interview back to you. Come from a small business in
There you go.
construction, family business. You're working for this commercial guy. You take the plunge to start your own business,
Yep.
okay? And you have become a top voice here on LinkedIn. Everybody knows you in the construction industry on LinkedIn, I feel like, and you're very well known and respected as a voice here. And then you obviously do other social media for other clients. So let's talk a little bit about social media and construction and why construction companies should be on social media.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the setup there. No, I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, so as far as why construction or why social media for construction companies, the reality is, and probably most owners will agree with this, is you probably don't need social media. Especially too for contractors out there who have made it up to this point, who have grown their company, whether it's first generation, second, third generation. Like I hear that a lot. A lot of contractors say, "Hey, it's not only social media; it's like all marketing in general."
Mhm.
However, the puck is the puck is moving. Things are changing. The younger generation specifically are spending a majority of their time on, scrolling. They're all just like scrolling all day.
Mhm.
Back in the day when we used to go out and play and ride our bikes, do that sort of stuff. Now this is the modern day riding the bike. And the reason I say that is the Gen Zers, as much as maybe certain older generations will bash and all that sort of stuff, which maybe there is merited reason why they say that, but those Gen Zers, as well as the next up and coming generation, Gen Alpha, will eventually become your future PEs, PMs, supers.
Mhm.
And the best way, in my opinion, to be able to get in front of them, to be able to make a case for why construction, but more specifically, why your company is through social media. I feel like that is going to be the power of the future because, like, I work with a few contractors already who are like, "Hey, Jonathan, we have enough work as it is. We have our whole process for business development, sale, be able to, win work, all that sort of stuff. We just need people to actually manage these projects for us." And the
Yeah.
reality is, when you consider the labor shortage, things like that, it's only getting more and more worse. And the numbers are obviously staggering as it relates to that. But what good is it to be able to have, maybe it's 10, 20, $100 million of backlog, but you don't have both the trades workers as well as the office or the field leadership team, like super PMs, all that sort of stuff, to be able to manage and actually build those projects out. And so that's where I see the problem happening, I would say, over the next 5, 10, maybe even 20 years, if we want to
Mhm.
go that far. And so, in my opinion, the contractors that take advantage of it now and begin to actually invest through social media, it could be baby steps into it, or maybe they want to go full blown. Hey, we're going to do like photo, video. We're going to do podcasts. We're going to do this full, like, depending on their threshold as far as how all in they want to go in my opinion, I feel like they're planting the seed now. That way in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, they look back and say, hey, I'm glad we started that, because now we're starting to see our competitors who were at the same level as we were now struggle because they can't find people to come work. They can't. They're struggling to be able to make a case now, and they're barely starting now versus a contractor that has, like I said, 5, 10, 20 years of experience now from a social media standpoint. And so I feel like, yes, I love websites. I think websites are great. Yes, I
Yep.
think Google, I think all these things are incredible, but I feel like social media is actually today how you control the narrative as far as who you are and who you're becoming, and ultimately how to, like, communicate that across the board. So that's what I see right now. It may not be a big issue problem, but I definitely see the puck moving in that direction down the line.
That's so interesting, and it actually makes sense. So number 1, I get a lot of DMs, and our team gets a lot of DMs of people who are, just asking us if we have work. Okay. So that's number 1. So clearly they like what they see and they want to work for our company. And that's amazing. Right.
Mhm.
Number 2, though, for the larger companies that we admire, right?
Mhm.
And I've mentioned a couple here on social media. And so we've got Dean Snyder Construction, and they're out in like Nebraska somewhere. And we've also got Spain Commercial, which is down in the DC metro area, and most of their social media content is around the worker, the employee, the company culture, how fun it is to work there. And that makes sense. Like, now that I like think about it, when you mention that's their strategy, right? And so even me as an outsider, as a third party, I'm like, I want to go work there
Yep.
because their social media content is so good.
Mhm.
you know
Yep.
and I've actually become friends with some of the owners or salespeople, or folks that run their pages, and I've gotten things in the mail from them, which we were talking about my little stickers
Yep.
and stuff beforehand. And stickers, I have found, is a great way to get your brand out there
Mm.
for not very much.
Yep.
We send out stickers, I don't know, every couple weeks to some social media people that follow us, and we just ask them for their address and we send them stickers, and we get them on our list.
Yep.
You know,
Smart.
like
Smart.
number 1, we get them on our list. And number 2, we have our brand on hard hats in other states, and or notebooks or whatever. And brand recognition is one of the main reasons that we started to do social media. We don't have a need for like a flood of clients, right? We take larger projects that take a certain period of time, and so we only have capacity for a certain number of projects a year, and hire on a per project basis project managers. To your point, very difficult to like find good talent.
Mhm.
So social media for us is about brand recognition. So let's
Mhm.
talk a little bit about strategy for just marketing in general, because it's not just social media. You've seen my shirt, you've seen my stickers. I'm all over all different platforms, but it wasn't always like this. Everything was kind of rolled out in phases. you
Mhm.
know
Yep.
and there is true strategy behind all of
Yep.
it.
Yeah, so I'm pulling up my notes here just to be able to actually walk through the framework in which I use.
Oh, I have it up here too. It's on your website, the construction growth framework, which while you
Yep.
pull it up, I will read, because, it says, and I love this. It says the same way a project requires planning and preparation, so does your social media, or, all of your marketing, really.
Yep.
And I love that. And, that's very true. I think any project does, construction or not.
Yeah, and so uh, I'm glad you brought this up actually, because I don't refer to the construction growth framework a lot because that's our process in which we work with clients. So like if you see
Mhm.
all that entire framework, that's how we work with our clients. However, when it comes to actually building social media strategy, I basically use the whole who, what, when, where, why, and how. And
Mhm.
basically each of those asks a specific question. And anytime you're building any sort of social media strategy, or honestly any strategy to begin with, you always want to start with why. Why are you doing this? You listed off one of the three main reasons why a contractor would do it, which you said brand awareness. In my opinion, I feel like that's the best play overall, because it allows for you to have the opportunity to be able to gain these second two, or the latter two, which is lead generation or maybe biz development. That's sort of be able to help improve in that area. But then the other thing though is talent acquisition. And so I would definitely
Okay.
bucket those three in that area. But and the reason it's important to know why, because I'm sure there's might be some people or contractors out there that might be like, hey, Jonathan, I kind of want all those three. Like I want to be able to get all that, of course.
Mhm.
And we all do. But the reason I think it's important to know which one you're optimizing for is because you know that, like, in a sense, the way we actually build out the strategy is kind of the whole 80-20 rule. It's like 80% of our focus, or like actually, yeah, ends up being, no, no, not focus. How do you say it? Basically, our main focus is basically 80% of the time we're going to focus on brand awareness,
Okay.
on lead gen or on talent acquisition, and knowing that the 20% is going to be maybe these additional things. But in my opinion, from my experience, since I have taken the overall brand awareness approach, I have been
Right.
able to get leads. I have been able, it's crazy. I made a post a few months ago saying there was 3 or 4 people who ended up reaching out to me saying, hey, Jonathan, I love what you're doing. I love the mission and everything you're doing. Are you hiring? For me, I'm like, I've never posted a hiring post by any means. I've never done any of that sort of stuff.
I haven't either.
But it's crazy because people see what you're doing. They're like, man, like I love what they're doing. I want to be a part of that. And so for me, I
Right.
think it's important to be able to understand first, why are you doing what you're doing? And then from there, then you go to the next step, which is who is it that you're targeting? So now that we know
Mhm.
why we're doing this, obviously the
Mhm.
who will inform us. Are we going to be more client facing? Are we going to be more culture facing? Maybe internal. Maybe it's more retention focused from the talent perspective, or maybe it is trying to appeal to the masses as far as like recruiting and saying, hey, here's a real life situation with this specific PM, what they did on this project, and then also to their call to action to invite you to come and join, what specific construction company is building. And so we have
Right.
the why, we have the who, and then now we have the what. So the who and the what are obviously right intertwined. It's like once you know that, let's say you're focusing on the client side, which is, maybe it's not direct leads, because in my opinion it is relationship based. You do want to build, that's how you end up, eventually getting awarded a project. However,
Right.
or at least maybe the opportunity to come and bid a project. But I say that is because let's say you are leaning more on the client facing side. It's like, what are you going to post? Well, you're probably going to post more projects, the different
Right.
scales, size of projects, maybe different sectors. Maybe you're doing healthcare, maybe you're doing government, maybe you're doing
Mhm.
multifamily. Like you want to be able to showcase that from an external standpoint. So that's what ultimately influences you to go to the what. And then as far as when, which typically relates to when should you post, I would say at a minimum, every contractor should be posting a minimum of once per week, but a high value, high quality post. I honestly think there's room to be able to scale it from there. But I honestly always start contractors at that sort of frequency, because if we're able to sustain that, and then maybe there's good feedback, which actually there's one specific contractor, like basically is a construction consultant that I'm working with, that's actually blowing up recently, which is awesome to see. Then we can begin to figure out the avenue to be able to scale from there. But my biggest thing is, this is
Right.
based on my personal experience. I think it was like a few years ago, I was posting 5 days per week, getting
Mhm.
0 to 2 likes per post. What I ended up doing was scaling that back, posted twice a week, and basically allocated the same amount of time I would take for 5 posts, but instead of that, I would do it for 2. And that was honestly the pivot from that actually ended up helping me begin landing clients from that standpoint. So that's kind of as far as when to post. With like, yeah, I think especially for LinkedIn, this is more specific to that. I think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is great. Friday is probably the worst day to post. This is honestly what I've realized. I post 7 days a week, and I've tested different times, things
So
like that. I
this
think
show on a Friday is not good? Is that what you're saying?
no. So that no. So from my perspective, I think the show makes more sense because more people are actually beginning to wind down. They're
Right.
open. They maybe have more time on the schedule. But just from an individual social media post standpoint, I've noticed that Friday is the one that has the biggest dip. And I actually talked to somebody else in the industry who also experienced the same thing. And as far as
Okay.
where, and I'm going to get to the last two things from the, we have the why, who, what, when, and we have the where and the how. Where we're going to post, all of that goes back to who it is you're targeting. If you're targeting
Absolutely.
clients, you're probably going to be posting on LinkedIn. If you're trying to recruit trades workers, people in the field, probably Instagram and Facebook's going to be your spot. But obviously
Yep.
that will inform your overall strategy and messaging. And then as
Hmm.
far as how, you basically have two options. Either you go find somebody to be able to hire full time, bring them in house, maybe part time social media coordinator, something like that to be able to
Right.
deploy it. Or you hire someone like my company who can actually give you the entire game plan and run the whole program from you from start to finish. You're influencing and adding a lot of input to what we're building. But instead of having to worry about maybe training or overseeing or managing somebody, now you have a company in which actually knows how to get you from A to Z and has
Right.
all the process and systems and everything in place to be able to plug and play. So that's the overall way I would go about approaching social media strategy from a content perspective in construction.
Yeah, and as an owner, as a small business owner who has tried, okay, doing it myself to save money because I edit videos better than anybody, um, or doing it myself because whoever we hired in house or part time doesn't know a lick about construction, so
No.
none of the posts make sense, or to handing it to a field PM or a site supervisor as part of their tasks and getting them to hate me and get all pissy with me because they didn't ask to have a marketing or social media job in the first place, right? To giving it to the project coordinator and telling her to just pull photos from Builder Trend, which is our project management software. To then finally being like, you know what? This is what we're going to do. Okay. We have a fractional CMO. We have a strategy. Clearly, the person who is posting is
Mm-hmm.
become a problem because it's not consistent. And you see
Mm-hmm.
that all
Yep.
throughout my 2023 posting. We
Mm-hmm.
posted a lot
Mm-hmm.
on multiple platforms, but it was a post to post, right? It wasn't, and even though we had a strategy, because whomever was doing the work was not a marketing person, and this is
Mm-hmm.
where I'm vouching for companies like yours, companies like Megan's, and companies like others, because you're not the only ones, and there's plenty of companies to do marketing for out there. And it is a relationship. There may be companies
Yeah.
you don't want to work with.
Yeah.
So, but the reason that companies like yours make sense and people like Megan make sense and our editors that we've hired since then, who work with both me and Megan, right?
Mm-hmm.
To then come up with monthly strategies, review numbers quarterly, figure out, okay, what type of posts are we posting on what platforms?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we posting them on what platforms? And for me, at this point, I hand it off to, Megan, and she kind of will review and whatever. And I'll just kind of smile, nod, and be like, okay, great. And I think that comes with time and trust, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's really important for companies to understand that just like we will hand off our accounting, just like we're going to hand off our, legal. Okay. We're not
Mm-hmm.
going to sit here and make our own contracts. And if you are, shame on you. Don't make your own contracts. Go watch that risk management episode I did with Lance and Megan Shapiro. Like, not a good idea, folks. You shouldn't be doing your own marketing. People like Tony Robbins, people like Grant Cardone, all the big billionaires out there say that you have to spend just as much on your R&D and marketing and sales as you do on your field, your equipment, and other, parts of your business all together. That's a lot of money, y'all.
No.
And most of you aren't even spending any of that, which is why you're not seeing the results. So I bring a marketing person on every couple months because this is marketing. And a lot of people, I mean, I'm not doing this because like I like staring at myself on a screen, like literally doing this because we also want to bring more people into the trades. This is a great way to showcase careers in the trades. You started off as a painter, probably a scrapper, really. you know, Probably started off scrapping for your dad or cleaning or whatever.
Picking up garbage.
Yeah, putting blue tape, and that is what
Yep.
scrapping is for drywallers,
Yeah.
putting blue tape around stuff, whatever, right? Like you grew up, but that's not what you do now. And
Yeah.
it's still construction. And so I love showcasing different jobs in construction, and companies like yours, evolve out of years in the construction
Mhm.
industry and maybe trying different things. But I mean, you were able to take your creative energy and
Mhm.
put it into something that makes you money and, ultimately brings you a lot of joy because I see you smiling and, you can't really fake that. You can't fake a smile. You could try, but it's maybe like a little cheesy.
Yeah.
And, you have built something that, it's also allowing you to continue to grow and learn. We joked around about Clubhouse, but we don't know what's coming up next, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely don't. And one of the things I honestly think about, which maybe you can empathize with this, is I wish I had the insight I had when I worked with my dad or when he had his little small business. Like I wish I like yes, great money helping contractors, subs, GCs all over the states, awesome, great. Honestly, like for me, there's a soft part of me where I'm like, I would love to be able to eventually help, those small Hispanic business owners because there's a lot of them out there, but they're really scared, fearful, uncertain, all these sort of things, which hey, makes sense considering their position totally. But there's a part of me
Mhm.
that's like, man, like especially too from maybe more established companies who are like, yeah, no, we need to do this, we need to invest in this. I'm like, I wish I could find those small little businesses, like similar to my dad, and be able to come and say, hey, here's what I'm doing with all these other contractors who are, established, who've been in the industry for a long time, who are doing really well, and this is where if this is where you want to go, this is what it's going to take. But I just know that sometimes especially with the language barrier, maybe cultural barrier, there is that. And so I'm just curious to see what your thoughts too, as it relates to maybe even your own insight from a
Mhm.
CM owner's rep standpoint. Like, have you ever thought through that lens of like, man, if I had the insider or industry experience that I do now to be able to help my dad or family back then, man, what could have that done?
If they were receptive about it, because, you know, there were many things, and my family owns a small blinds and window treatment business.
Mm,
Okay. And so there was many a times that, and my grandparents ran the business, my aunt and uncle ran the business, my dad
mhm,
runs the business now. It's always been a part-time business. And I've always wanted or thought like, what if we all work together and turned it into like
mhm,
something bigger, right? And it never turned out because they would
mhm,
never listen to us, and I say us, I mean me, my cousin, shout out to Javi. It's his birthday today, and he's also an entrepreneur. And we tried, man, we tried. And I hear a lot of that, right? I do hear a lot of that with it, especially within the Latino community. Um, we've been doing it. Let We've been doing it this way for so long. We don't need que
mhm.
social media, que Facebook ni Facebook, que eso de Instagram. What LinkedIn, que vaina, like literally that's what they're gonna tell us. Recoge esa escoba y cállate, like literally. And I had to translate to people like, like pick up the broom and shut up, like literally, like I mean, and so, and I love my family. I do,
Yeah.
que en paz descanse, rest in peace, grandma and grandpa. And, I know that they're super proud of me, even my dad, right? And this business is really like
Yeah.
everything I learned in our family business, like I have used to even going on estimates with my grandmother when I was a kid.
Mm,
I have a lot of the same mannerisms as her and my dad, and just the way that I approach sales. And I've had other sales jobs, and people are like, "Where'd you learn this stuff?" And I'm like, just I don't know. That's just how grandma did it. She closed a lot of deals, you know. Like,
Go
see,
grandma.
seems to work for her. So yeah, but I mean, to go back to that, yes, I wish I had the insight, but also I know that the owner and the family member has to be receptive and open to listening to that younger generation and or a spouse or
Yep.
whomever, right? And I think that that's why it's really difficult to work with family. And we've had other guests
Mm.
on the show who do work with family or their spouse and have shared some of that. And so, I think you still have the opportunity to help other small businesses. And we talked about one of those ways, a little bit earlier. I did my very first Espanol episode last week with Steph Sell Homes, and we did it on Small Business Day or something like that.
Mhm.
I think, or whatever. I don't know. There's so many like random Hallmark holidays. I can't keep track anymore of what day is what. But part of the reason that we did it is because we also recognize there are so many small business owners that could benefit from all these shows we're doing, and they don't understand a lick of what we're saying. Especially me, I talk too fast and from New York. Sorry guys. But um so having these shows in Spanish or even webinars in Spanish, and I know Jesus, he was around here. Everybody knows him as Jesse, but I call him Jesus. He speaks Espanol, and there's so many others. I think the Construction Yeti also speaks a little Spanish, or at least Spanglish, because he's a CM in Texas. He has no choice. So I think there's still very much opportunity for you to maybe do something that's separate for the community as you continue to grow your business. And I'd love to talk to you more about it offline because, you know, our mission is to leave the construction industry better than we found it.
Yeah,
And it's not
that's
just
great.
by the processes of how we do things or by the way we run our business, although our business is like the first one in the example. But, my goal would be to, as I continue to learn and grow as a small business owner, be able to help other small business owners and particularly the tradespeople that work with me and underneath me and the sub trades. I've helped many of them have bilingual contracts because they need them.
Mhm.
you know, and taught them other things that I learned along the way that they don't know. They might do beautiful carpentry work or be an awesome floor installer or restorer, but maybe they didn't learn about business or
Mhm.
marketing or whatever. So, we could talk about all of this stuff for hours and hours, I'm sure. But we don't have hours and hours, and I know you've got other things to do. So, for those who are not on LinkedIn and don't follow you already, where can the people find you?
Yeah, so the place I live on a majority of the time is LinkedIn. So I'm Jonathan Core. Last name is just COR. Yeah, I post content every single day. I have that. I'm also posting content on construction marketers and doing a lot of short form video content on there from
Mhm.
content podcasts that I'm doing from that standpoint. And yeah, just trying to find ways to share what I've learned free of cost. Like if you look at any of my posts, I'll never say reach out to me, call me. Well, I won't pitch you. I'm just like, hey, here's what I learned. Take it and go.
Mhm.
If you do it yourself, awesome. If you have somebody else steal it and then do it for you, great. Hire me, great. Either way, I just know that I'm just trying to share as much value and insight as I learn it. And I realized, and this is an interesting thing, is because sometimes I would say maybe even contractors struggle with this. They're like, hey, they're very like, yeah, I don't want to share these things because other people are going to put me out of business. I realize the more open, the more transparent, the more honest I am with my content and what I learn, the more my business has grown as a result. So I'm just going to keep doing that
100.
because I know I'm just like whatever I'm putting into the world is also taking care of me in the process. So
100%. I couldn't agree, more. I told you I had a very interesting week. I posted a little bit about my week on other platforms where I share in stories. And honestly, the feedback that I got from just being very vulnerable
mm,
and also what I shared, but the type of people that responded that I didn't even know that like checked out my content, first of all,
mm,
you know, and just the outpouring of love and support from the community was like, wow, you know?
mm.
And I think that people also forget that there's a whole human side
Mhm.
to construction. And one of the beautiful parts about the social media platforms and people like you who are excellent storytellers is that we can use these platforms to tell these stories, to show that human side of construction, and also to help be a little bit of that change that we want to see in the construction industry. Enrollment in trade schools is up by 16%. And that's great news for the construction industry. We're happy to see that. And enrollment in four-year universities is down. And that's also great because that means that more people are enrolling in trades. And so we also like to hear that. And, we want people to be successful. And so I'm grateful for you. I'm really grateful for your time. I'm going to ask you one quick question and this is for all the construction business owners who are not on LinkedIn. And, our next guest for 2 weeks from now is somebody that's from another platform who does not spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So since you only mentioned your LinkedIn, can you tell us real quick before we hop off why LinkedIn is so valuable and why so many people overlook it, especially in the construction industry? Or in your opinion, of course.
Yeah, so people overlook it because they have this preconceived notion that the only reason you go on LinkedIn is when you need a job or when you got a
Right.
promotion or when you're looking for a job. Like they're looking
Right.
at it as though it were Indeed with a social media function. The reality is
Mhm.
that's changed maybe for the past 10, yeah, maybe around 10 years because there's some of the
Mhm.
bigger creators now. I'm like, man, how'd you get big? But I realized, oh yeah, they've been posting for the past decade. So it makes sense why they're
Right.
big. They built it over time. But I think that's the misconception about LinkedIn is that it's just about, yeah, looking for a job, sharing your promotion, or or anything in between that. But the reality is like there's a lot of subject matter experts, or what I'll refer to, yeah, subject matter experts about specific things around construction management. You have contracts, you have leadership, you have estimating, you have so many specific verticals and like niches within
Insurance.
construction that, yeah, insurance, you have so many ways that you can
Yeah.
learn to be able to grow your business every single day. And the cool part, especially too from my perspective as it relates to construction in the commercial side or maybe even civil or architecture engineering, is these executives for these companies, the CEOs, even if they are older in generation, don't ever post or anything, they go on there every day and research. Like somebody that
Yep.
comes to mind right away that is an older guy but that crushes it on LinkedIn is Bob Clark from Clayco. Like it's a
Mhm.
huge company, but he's actively posting content. And I actually did a spotlight for him a few weeks ago. Just he's because there's always this preconceived notion that older guys don't care about social media. No, older guy, experience, has tons of business acumen, has grown a company that's thousands of employees, and yet every single day he's posting, sometimes even multiple times per day on there, and it's him posting directly. It's not a social media team, all that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
so in my perspective, there's a wealth of knowledge, but also to the people that are engaging and interacting every single day are high level people that we can all learn and grow with as we go on our own journey, whether it's someone like me growing my social media company or contractors looking to grow and scale their company as well. So
Right.
that's my pitch for LinkedIn for anybody who's on the fence about it.
Well, there you have it, folks. If you are not using LinkedIn, you're snoozing. And there are billions of members on LinkedIn. And I've got to tell you guys, of all the social media platforms, this is probably where the greater majority of our lead gen comes from. As Jonathan mentioned, the other platforms are more for engaging with the trades or advocating for the
Mhm.
industry or showcasing cool work. That's what people are looking at, right? They're like, oh, they do plaster, they do
Mhm.
this, they do that, right? So they can see what we're working on, and then go to our website or wherever, right?
Yep.
But the top level executives or top level management that are going to be looking for a construction management firm or an owner's rep firm, are probably not going to be hanging out on Instagram. You
Mhm.
know, so yeah, that's the LinkedIn spiel. Well, Jonathan, We've been here a little bit over 50 minutes. I'm going to give you back the rest of your afternoon. I'm sure you've got to get back to having some fun. And I know you're out on the West Coast. You still have half a day of work.
Yep.
So thank you so much for being here today. Really, really appreciate you for making the time. Folks, Jonathan Core, that's COR on LinkedIn. We will, of course, add all of the stuff in the show links. Thank you so much and catch you next time. Bye, everybody.